Hey guys, welcome to week 3. This week you'll be watching a screencast based on the after school program tech club in the Bozeman schools. It's a screencast by Dr. Marilyn King and Megan Brenna from the Greater Gallatin United Way. Dr. King is from the Bozeman schools, and the presentation that they're going to give you gives you a really good overview of the after school program. Even if you're not placed in a school in the Gallatin Valley, this screencast is going to be really helpful for you, so do watch it even though you might not be placed right in a Bozeman school. It's important because it's going to give you a really good idea of the professional expectations and the preparedness that you are going to need to bring to every tech club visit. So please take some time to watch it. It's a little bit long, but it will really prepare you for your tech club stay. And then thinking about that, when you are entering your school, there's a couple things that I would suggest you to do before you get started. When you're talking to the administration or your teacher that you're going to be working with or the after school program leaders, there's some important things I'd like you to ask. And these things are suggestions based on things that students have said who have taken this course in the past. They're kind of suggestions to help guide you in the right direction. And so some things to think about when you're talking to whoever's in charge of the program you're going to be working with is to ask what kind of technology is available and do the students know how to use it. So in some cases you might have iPads or you might only have basic computers. You don't really know, so it's important to ask. You'll also want to ask what age range are the students, and how many of them are there typically. Often that is going to change drastically on a day-to-day basis, but if you can get a basic idea, I think that will be really helpful for you. Another important thing for you to ask, I think, is what are the usual routines and rules for, say, the after-school program or the classroom that you're in? If you don't know those usual routines and rules, the students might take advantage of you, and you might end up with some classroom management issues. So make sure that you're finding those kinds of things out too. Something else to ask are who are the adults you'll be working with, and who are your resources? Who can you go to for help? Who's going to be there with you? And also, are there any special considerations you should know about? Any students with special needs that you should know about beforehand? Things like that. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, what does your school expect from you? Are they anticipating that you are going to come in with a fully planned lesson and you're going to be totally on your own teaching it? Or will you be working with other adults to assist them? Or just basically, what are they expecting of you? And I think knowing those things will give you a really good head start so you don't have some confusion right from the beginning. Okay, moving on. So your assignment this week is to come up with a concept map. And so a concept map, in other words, is a graphic organizer or a brainstorming tool, or basically just a way to get your ideas down out on paper in a visual sort of way. And so what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of those, your favorite activity plan that you came up with last week, and you are going to create a graphic organizer using spiderscribe.net, which is free and very user-friendly, and you'll be using that to create your concept map. And so some things to include in your concept map are the content area, the learning objectives, and this is kind of an important thing to talk about and keep in mind. Your learning objective, maybe when you wrote your activity ideas, you had some basic goals for what you would like your students to do. But now that we're thinking about what specific learning objectives you would like your students to achieve, it's going to be really important for you to word those objectives carefully and thoughtfully. They need to be concrete and measurable. And so if you're writing an objective, an example of something that would be really, really vague would be students will understand Google Earth. And so that's really vague. The word understand is just so all-encompassing. How could you ever measure that? There's really no good way to figure out exactly if they understand it when you word it that way. Another way you could word it that might work a little bit better would be students will create a Google tour of the locations mentioned in the Diary of Anne Frank. And so by wording my learning objective in that way, it is very concrete exactly what I want those students to do. And I will be able to tell exactly if they have achieved that or not, if they have made a Google tour that includes locations mentioned in the Diary of Anne Frank. It's concrete, it's going to be easy for me to assess, and it's also easy for the students to understand what's expected of them. And so that's just an example. And when you're writing up your own learning objectives, keep that in mind. Don't just write out broad statements, but really think about, how will I figure out if the students achieve this or not? Then moving on, you'll also want to come up with some basic assessment plans. And this is important for you as well, because you don't really know these students for the most part. Maybe you might be in a situation where you do, but for the most part, these students are really strangers to you. So using a pre-assessment to kind of figure out what level they're at is going to be really important, because if you dive right in and you're presenting material that's way over their head, you're going to lose them all immediately. And so assessing where they are and then keeping up with your assessments throughout is going to be really important. Just kind of checking in and seeing where students are is going to be really helpful for you. You will also want to include a brief description of the actual learning activities. And so what that should be is a step-by-step, first we'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this. That's going to be probably the most practical element of this concept map, because it'll give you some guidance as a teacher. And then finally, you'll also want to include how you're including technology, your technology integration ideas, how you're mixing technology in with this. And so as you're writing up this concept map, you're going to probably come up with some awesome ideas, but just keep in mind that you are not required to actually teach this lesson to your tech club group. The reason for that is because different things come up and you might not be able to. You might find that this lesson plan doesn't exactly fit with your group of students. You might not have the proper resources for it, and you might not have the time. There's a lot of different reasons it might not work, and so because of that, you're not required to teach this to your actual group of students. It would be great if you could. I think that would give you a really well-rounded experience. So try to if you can, but just keep in mind that you are not required to do so. And you shouldn't worry if you don't get to teach your actual concept map plan. And then moving on, well, actually not quite yet. I wanted to show you a couple examples of what the concept map might look like. So here's one example, and this is a rather wordy example, for lack of better terminology. It's very, very thorough and rich. You are not necessarily expected to include such a lengthy concept map. Yours can be a bit more simple than this, so don't feel like you need to get up to this level. And then another example, this one might be a little bit more simple in the wording. Just two examples for you to look at. Don't get wrapped up in using these examples as what yours should exactly look like, but they're just basic ideas. And then finally, your discussion assignment for this week is to basically reiterate your 3 activity ideas to your classmates. And so you can go back to your week 2 assignment and post those 3 ideas. You can also use different ideas if you like, but your original posting should include those 3 ideas, and then your second 2 postings will be responding to others' ideas. This would be a really good one to get done earlier in the week so that you can get some feedback on your ideas. Your classmates might help you figure out which idea would work best for your concept map and which one you should pursue. And that is pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you're having any trouble getting set up in a school, you should be in the school by now, and so it's going to be really important for you to talk to me or to talk to somebody in your local area to figure out where you should be, because you're falling a little bit behind if you haven't already gotten into the school. And so that's just something to keep in mind, and I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks, guys.